So, once upon a time, back before first puberty ravaged my mind and body, a tinier version of me played the original Final Fantasy VII for the first time. And like so many others, it sparked an excitement for games in me that is still destroying my life to this exact moment as I say these words. This game was life-changing for me, pure and simple. So when the compilation of Final Fantasy VII got announced alongside the original trailer for the then unbelievable looking Advent Children in all its 2040p glory, I got hype. I got more hype than I've ever gotten for anything else before or since. I do not know if it's physically possible for me to become as hyped for anything as I was for the release of Advent Children. You see, this was in a time before my innocent soul had been touched by concepts like franchises not staying good forever, or cash-ins, or creative bankruptcy, or mortal frenemies.
I hate you, I love you.
I was at that perfect age where I firmly believed that if it had Final Fantasy in the name, it was going to be great, especially if it was followed by a 7. And who could blame me? All the trailers for Advent Children were absolutely killer and remain so to this day. Holy shit, that's cool. You ever pre-order a movie at GameStop? I have. And then I got home, and I watched it, and I learned what denial felt like. I mean, of course I liked it the first time. My tiny child brain was so hopped up on adrenaline, naivete, and Dr. Pepper that I would have enjoyed basically any nightmare dropped in front of me. After the 30th rewatch, though, certain, problems start to crop up one by one. Such minor issues as... Okay, you ready for the most sizzling hot take you're gonna get this week? Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Not very good. Yeah, right? Who'd have thunk that a sequel to a story with a deliberately ambiguous ending headed by a first-time film director from a company that doesn't make movies would turn out to be more than a little jank? Especially with such a strong, driving artistic motivation as, oh shit, we forgot to plug in the money printer, fuck! So of course, once this realization started to settle into place, my tiny child soul kind of imploded in on itself, and I began to hate it in just like, this really pure way, you know? Like, I love to hate it. I savored how terrible this movie was, and how much fun it was to tear into. As did more than a handful of people, it seems. I was definitely responsible for more than a couple toxic forum posts back in the day, and for that, I apologize. If you happen to see the Syroxis666, I am very sorry for saying that your avatar looked as dumb as you. That hatred for this movie never really went away, so much as it cooled, while I matured and began to recognize it not for the personal insult I once thought it was, but rather the shameless cash grab and disregard for creative vision that it is. And normally, that's where I'd be content to leave it. A cynical piece of for-profit art hoisted into the hands of some naive kids who were desperate for a little bit more of that thing they loved, only to discover that quality comes from the creative vision of artists, rather than a brand name. Tale as old as time. I think we've all seen this Return of Jafar Disney DVD before. If I wanted to, I could sit here and make this video nothing but me dunking on this movie for the next 20 minutes, explaining all the flaws everyone's been explaining for years, maybe highlight a few exceptionally bad line readings, point out, wow, that's fucking terrible, lol, and then call it a day. You know, like this.
You have geostigma, don't you?
That was the best take. That would be fun. But the thing is, though, there was and is just something about Advent Children that I can't shake. Maybe it was just the age it hit me. It was definitely the age it hit me. But there was something about certain pieces of it that have always really stuck with me. Things like the fight choreography, approach to editing, and shot composition have been bouncing around in my head so long that I'd be lying if I said they haven't seriously influenced my idea of what good fantasy action is supposed to look like. Speaking as objectively as I can, I think it's safe to say this movie did leave a serious, lasting impact on me, and I don't think I'm entirely alone in that. In a lot of ways, its legacy can still be felt all around us to this day. As such, I honestly want to like this movie. While I've waded further and further into the putrid waters of adulthood, the bitterness I once held towards this movie has given way towards nostalgic curiosity. Honestly, I am biased in its favor at this point. I would really like to appreciate it for what it is and love the things about it that are worth loving, which is deeply unfortunate because this movie is just so fucking terrible. However, then it occurred to me. I'm a semi-talented dork with access to Adobe Premiere. Surely I could do something to try and condense everything I like about this movie into the tightest package I can manage. Something like that amazing trailer I originally fell in love with way back when, that takes every piece of this movie that has since influenced not just me and my tastes, but a whole generation of talented artists and animators. And, perhaps most importantly, is there any better way to do that than with the way that most people first experienced Advent Children? Via an AMV set to some pseudo-scene music. So after spending many a sleepless hour in the editing cave and vibing out with some of my favorite cringecore, I now emerge to offer you whatever the fuck this is. Enjoy.
Never knew that you could be so lonely, lonely. Running out of feelings, so pretend you can be lonely, lonely. Stuck in your mind, can't let it go. What hurts you the most is I wasn't there to beg you. Baby, don't go, put on a show. Catharsis is beautiful. Brighter. How I wish I could touch you, feel you, breathe you, be just like you.
Well, now you've seen the result of that line of thinking, and, speaking only for myself, I like it. I tried my best to leave as much of the visuals as untouched as I could in terms of image manipulation while still fitting it within the confines of my incredibly weeby goal. And I think I did pretty okay at that. I was aiming for a raw, mid-aught style AMV, and that's what we got. 2007 retro net chic. Kill me. Not saying it's flawless at all. Hell, its very premise is flawed, and questionable, and deeply shameful. But I do think it does at least a half-decent job of taking the most memorable and distinct elements I enjoyed from the movie, and highlighting what made them so impactful. Not sure if anyone other than me even can enjoy it, but I do hope you didn't find it too insufferable. Of course, though, this all begs the real question. Did I find anything else to appreciate about this film over the course of making this abomination? And the answer is, yeah, actually. Perhaps most surprising to me was the amount of stuff that I was really saddened that I had to leave out. Like, there was a lot of cool stuff that I just did not have space for here. I had basically no room for the Kadaj or Bahamut fights proper, though, to be fair, those are basically plot cul-de-sacs in the original movie anyways. Likewise, the interactions between Rufus and Kadaj have a shockingly large amount of really cool shots, even if the dialogue is still pretty peak Nomura. And I only really covered about half the Sephiroth fight, which is a shame, because that's basically where the movie officially justifies its existence. That fight is absolutely unreal. In hindsight, it's really interesting to note that when Tetsuya Nomura got the reins of Final Fantasy VII, one of his first thoughts was, hey, let's have Sephiroth drop the Shinra building on Cloud. Suddenly, FF7R isn't that surprising. And again, that's not even considering how quickly I had to go through Kadaj just to get to that. Cause that fight is a lot of fun and has some of the coolest action cuts I have ever seen, but is also kinda pointless to the overall plot. We all know he's just built up for Sephiroth. Point is though that there is in fact a pretty sizable amount of really impressive moments here, especially in the latter half. This movie really does a lot to highlight that Nomura is nothing if not an amazing visual artist. Not to overfocus on the director, but I think it's safe to say that his fingerprints are all over this. Dude's always had an eye for framing, character posing, and action pacing. His overall structural editing isn't perfect by any means, either here or elsewhere, but he does know how to generate momentum exceptionally well during fight scenes, while also recognizing when to back off to build anticipation for the next major action, which honestly makes him a lot better than most action directors out there. He got the job directing FF7 and 8's battle visuals for a reason. His fights are always so wispy and light in a way that makes them feel like this sort of ethereal dance, but they can still make the serious hits land with some intense weight when it really matters. All the actual movements are rapid and blurry, with the camera quickly swiping and darting along with them. However, the major anticipatory windups and hard impacts always get highlighted with a brief beat or a drastic slowdown that borders on a freeze-frame tableau. Like, let's look at the start of that iconic Tifa fight to see what I mean. Fight starts. Tifa takes her stance, breathes, pulls back in anticipation slightly before boom! Next frame she's a blur. She's out of the frame in the time it took to start the windup. The camera can't even keep up, but then the first hit lands, which happens so fast that it's hard to even tell it hits him square in the jaw. A beat passes to breathe and set up anticipation for the next action. This then leads into Tifa's first kick, which we don't even really see or even begin to, but we absolutely feel that landing when the shot transitions with this rapid, distorted cross zoom into a flurry of punches that ends with Laws getting hit so hard he slides back, settling into another one of those brief beats. Huge energy, followed by a dramatic release of tension, rapidly executed, over and over. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be some expert in animation, because I'm not. But even I can recognize that the action of Advent Children is defined by this kind of exaggerated anticipation, this pull and release. And it is a huge part of what's influenced a lot of 3D animators to this day. In practice, its overall effect is an omnidirectional fight that feels like you're being pulled along with it. Left and right, back and forth, up and down. It is, by deliberate design, floaty. It may, in fact, be too floaty for some people, and that is totally a valid critique, because this is about as peak anime fight as we can get. But personally, if you can't find that moment of Tifa landing on the wall satisfying, then I'm not sure we can be friends. Anyways, since I'm sure someone will mention it, yes, music good. But also the only music here that's sincerely memorable are basically just reorchestrations or alternate compositions of music originally from Final Fantasy VII, and yeah, they're great. That's why I loved them in the original game. Yes, my little fangirl heart also fluttered out of my chest when I heard the first notes of Air's theme, and I too love that absolutely over-the-top guitar riff in the new version of One Winged Angel. But I still generally think that the Distant Worlds versions of these tracks are a bit better. Plus, I also think it's kind of unfair to give this movie points for just repurposing the best parts of another much better work of art. Then again, I guess that's its whole thing, isn't it? Speaking of which, prior to deciding to make this, I'd never actually seen the complete cut of Advent Children, and I gotta say, it's pretty good. It does way more to patch up even some of the most serious problems on a level that I never would have expected. Like, Cloud's got a character arc that almost makes sense now. And you'll understand who the hell Denzel is without having to do outside homework. Plus, they polished up and expanded some of the fight scenes, cleaned up a lot of the dialogue, and generally just basically gave it the second draft it so desperately needed. I genuinely believe that if this was the version we'd originally gotten, people probably would remember this movie a lot more fondly than they do now. I mean, it's still trash, mind you, and more than a little insulting to the original ending of the game if you think about it for longer than 5 seconds given how intentionally ambiguous it was. But I'm not here to critique Advent Children, only to try and love it. So while it may still be trash, now it's my trash. So I will say, if you're an FF7 stan who just really loves these characters, then this is worth your time for Reno and Rude alone. Just be sure to have some high-octane turn-your-brain-off juice beforehand. As we've established, it works best running off of imagery, energy, and fan service, but still more or less breaks down the moment you try and make it much more than that. So I guess what I'm saying is, Advent Children, 10 out of 10. So long as you watch it with the audio muted on Kanye West's giant projector wall. Now please don't make me regret learning to appreciate this thing by making it a pivotal part of the remake. I live in fear. So what was the point of all of this? Well, for my part, I got to learn to look at a piece of media that I've had a complicated relationship with using a slightly more forgiving eye. And I'm just the slightest bit happier for it. I'd prefer not to hate things that, for better or worse, mean a lot to me. So that's cool. As for you, I hope you found this at least mildly interesting and, go forth and do likewise, I guess. I think we've all got at least one thing in our mental media libraries that was deeply formative for us as kids, but as you grow and mature and learn, you start to see the flaws in it, and your opinion just completely flips. Maybe it was BioShock, or My Chemical Romance, or Sailor Moon, or, like, Tiny Tank? Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy? Whatever. But who knows? There's every possibility that you totally overcorrected your opinion because that first media betrayal always stings the worst. As such, might be worth revisiting. You don't gotta love them again or anything, but, you know, give it a try and see what it was that interested you in them in the first place. They'll almost certainly be flawed as hell, but if they spoke to you once, you may find that they still have one last thing to say to you. And hopefully it will be more meaningful than fucking dilly-dally shilly-shally. Holy shit, dude. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. In the unlikely event that you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, send it to all of your friends who still shop at Hot Topic, and please consider throwing me $1 or $2 over on Patreon because there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to monetize this thing. On that note, I'd like to take a minute to personally thank all of the kind people supporting me over on Patreon. Absolutely amazing people such as Sever, Olivia WK, Thomas Hederman, Black Mage App, Everett Nelly, Claude, Marcus Johansson, Yeti Spaghetti, Neo Nico, Griffin Alec Matherly, Kevin Thurber, Matthew Cassidy, and all of the cool people kind enough to support me. Thank you all so much. Big projects are in the works, but going to be trying to get some smaller stuff out first before I throw myself into that special hell again. We'll hopefully have another video out by the end of the month. Getting back on that grind, y'all. Cool stuff is coming. See y'all again real soon.